Good morning. My name is Steve Denby, the Sales Director for LETN Solutions, and welcome to the latest in a range of seminars about cloud technology. I'm going to be running through a short introduction to who LETN are this morning, handing over to Andy Hardy, and he will be taking you through the CrashPlan product that is the focus of this morning's webinar. So, started. About who we are as a business. The first thing that we can get asked is what do the letters in our name stand for, LETN, and simple really. We were started to bring leading edge technology to the mid-market, help embrace technology and make the best use of it. So it's in leading edge technology and network solutions. The core of what we do for our customers is we focus on helping people evolve away from classic legacy IT solutions and move towards cloud computing, infrastructure service, and far more dynamic infrastructure, focusing on their applications and data opposed to spinning disk and flashing lights. This really helps us achieve greater efficiency through the cost savings. In many cases, we've actually helped a lot of our customers gain a competitive edge in their marketplaces just through the use of smart technology. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about this morning very quickly, our view on the world of cloud, and that is not a new concept. The word cloud was born back around about 2009 in the IT media, and since then it's been grossly overused to the point where it doesn't mean a great deal to many of us anymore. It can be used to describe just about anything that is provided as a service. So drilling into it, what does it actually mean? Well, we believe it means utility-based computing. And when you take that concept about not owning some of the technology that you're using to run your line of business or your organization's IT, and you look backwards over time, it's quite easy to see that the concept isn't new. This has been used for many, many years. In fact, back in the big mainframes and reel-to-reel tapes, this technology was very expensive. Anything in IT was hugely expensive, millions of pounds to buy large computers. Therefore, smaller organizations couldn't afford to own their own one, and they used to use bureau services. Even if you did have a large mainframe of your own, you often had an agreement with either another organization just down the road that had one, or a bureau service to protect yourself in case one broke down, in which case you could then go and borrow some computing time on their platform to get your payroll down. In fact, I would go as far to say that universities back in the day used to sell time on their mainframes to local schools, and it's a little known fact that Mr. Bill Gates himself used to learn to program on a local university computer that he accessed remotely over a dial-up line with his school friends. So there are things here that show that utility-based computing and paying for technology as a service is new. It really isn't a new concept, so we shouldn't be too scared to embrace it. Our engagement model and what it is that LETN offer our customers, we do two things. We find smart infrastructure, which can be on-premise and owned by yourselves. This we call EvoPod. This is a pre-packaged, de-risked bundle of hardware and software that provides you with virtualization, smart infrastructure pool of resource. We wrap various services around that as required. We offer the whole concept as a cloud offering, as infrastructure service. That's fully hosted, not owned by yourselves, and is measured as a utility, so it can be scaled up and down very, very simply. And we just, by using this method on the screen now, we work through each workload individually, and that can be a group of servers or maybe an application that's made up of data and others. We then look at how assume that. Where does it best belong? Does it fit a structure as a service model, or does it need close to your users on premise, and do you need a puddle of smart resource right up close to your office? Once we've decided where those workloads live, we then talk about protecting them, replicating them, making them highly available, so that you can switch over, within the tolerances that the business requires. We then offer support to make sure that carries on working, and we offer tight SLAs around web applications. So depending on what your business needs, we can pretty much do anything you need us to. Moving to the cloud concept and what's important to customers as we see it today. what we're seeing is a shift to focusing on the applications and data that keep the business running. Now, they list at the tip of this little very big iceberg that I've on the screen here right now. What management and the rest of the business don't see, if you're working in the IT department, that is the rest of the iceberg, which is sat underneath the waterline. And I'll get that in just a second, and how we see the market splitting up in the cloud world. But just to focus on what is important to you and your organization, or probably is important, with things like email, website applications, data is on the back end, holding critical information, big data about your customers, securing all that, protecting from things like DDoS attacks and interference from outside forces, optimizing it as well so that the user experience is nice and fast. People really don't tolerate anything unless it's immediate and on demand these days, so it's got to be quick. You have your application area, which would be set up here. You then have all that data, and you've got file data, back office data, your intellectual property and patents and IP, what have you, creation tools that your organisation is using to move data around and work on new content, for compliancy, and the concept that all of those stations and data need to be on demand. People are working now from multiple devices right around the clock, which, when you put all these things together, is what keeps the tills ringing for your organisation and the exec team happy. So that's what they're focused on. That's what they want to see. All of these things highly available, time running, optimized, and as quickly as possible. What we focus on is that behind all that, there are various things that need to happen to support those applications and data. First of all, of which is the physical environment. Most organizations now are realizing that the old-fashioned computer room and building things out internally to their office is kind of going the way of the dinosaur. Large dedicated data centers are being built all over the world. These are purpose-built facilities that are highly available. We partner with an organization called Equinix, and they're currently globally running at 7 nines availability. That's 99.999, etc. That kind of reliance on physical infrastructure in the actual real estate that your equipment is in is very hard to achieve when you're trying to build it yourself. So people are moving their equipment in co-location facilities and making use of hands for changing tapes and doing other bits and pieces and pressing buttons. Their infrastructure into these co-location facilities, they're then loading their operating systems and applications in the same old way they always were, obviously the virtualization in there. What's emerging, though, is that more and more organizations are making use of things like infrastructure as a service, where they don't own that equipment. They may have some they own still for various reasons. Maybe they're depreciating some hardware. But as applications pop up, they're taking a look at whether they need to own that and whether they can actually move it into an infrastructure as a service. So that our Evo Cloud offering exists. But in addition to that, you have other services, software as a service and things like platform as a service. Clear examples of what these things are and how they complement each other. Software as a service, there's an awful lot of people out there right now using things like Salesforce for CRM functionality. Office 365 is growing in popularity. And there are tools like Mimecast, which is sort of online security and archiving tools for email. Platform as a service, well publicized. These are organizations like Amazon, Google, Microsoft Azure, where they build very key functionality into large puddles of infrastructure and set very cheaply a very specific service point of view. So it does one thing, does it very well, not necessarily the most high level, but it certainly has a particular place in the market. Today's webinar is about protecting the endpoint, and Annie's going to be talking about that in a lot more detail in a second. But just to point out where CrashPlan and Code42's products exist from a perspective, sit in these two silos. You can back up your endpoint data to us on our cloud and have control on where your data is. Gartner would call that sovereign data center service, where you know that it's within the UK. We don't have data center presence outside of the UK very deliberately. So anything that we do falls within UK jurisdiction and law, and that can be quite important to many of our customers. And then CrashPlan also offer an online service where you can back up directly to their data centers. One concept that LETN have recently launched, excuse me, managing these various silos. What we're able to do now is our latest innovation is a portal service, which gives you the ability to manage your on-premise virtual infrastructure, your infrastructure as a service infrastructure, such as Evo Cloud solution, and your platform as a service provider, so Amazon. So you have one window to manage it all, and as you work out from the business what workloads they're looking to deploy, you get to choose which virtual data center you put that in, and you can see exactly who's consuming what, where. We believe the future, and we're offering people sort of free trials of this. You can use it on pay-as-you-go on our cloud, and we're quite to show you how you can manage your existing infrastructure using these tools at the same time. And finally, I'm often asked, as an organisation, we're reasonably small. You may have heard of us before, but we're quite often described as batting above our weight. We do business with a lot of large organisations. This is essentially known as our brag wall, just to give you a bit of reassurance that we are dealing with some reputable companies there. And everybody on this screen here has taken some form of cloud-based service from us at some stage in the past. And with that, I'm very pleased to be able to hand over to Andy Hardy, who's going to take you through Code42's CrashPlan solution.
Okay, Steve, good morning. Good to be. Steve, can you see my screen okay?
I'll hand that over to you now, Andy, 2 seconds. Okay,
right, Steve, good morning, everybody. My name is Andy Hardy. I'm Managing Director of Code42 in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We are makers of CrashPlan and SharePlan. And thanks for joining us, because I'd like to talk to you a little bit about protecting data on the edge of your networks and on the edge of your data centers. Companies have invested a lot of money over the years, a lot of time and people and process as well, to protect information that's in the data center. So we see that we've invested in things like high availability and business continuity, disaster recovery, identity management, data governance of all forms. And IT has always had the to see, we've had visibility into that information and control. So we've got visibility and control all that information in the data center. But there's been a shift, and as information is increasingly used in new ways, as workforces demand increased mobility, information shifting increasingly outside of the data center. And that's data on the edge, not only in terms of topologically outside of your data center on the edge of your network, but also in terms of exposing that information to risk and causing IT to lose visibility and control. So that's probably we're focused on at Code42, enabling mobile workforce productivity without putting your organization at risk. Let's talk a little bit more about that information shift. This creates both opportunities and challenges. Think about the content. Mission-critical data increasingly resides on the devices that people use to do work. Structured data is growing very rapidly, and most of that is content which is created by individuals on laptops, on workstations, and easily accessed on their iPhones and Android devices and all of that sort of stuff. In fact, we see more than half of workers have 3 or more devices that they use every day. Millions upon millions of people using tablets as well. And we also see that this is sort of a convergence between work and personal data. It's no longer separate. Most workers have used a personal device for work, and nearly half of workers have used an unsanctioned cloud service of some sort, for example, to share files and to enable them to access information that's safely protected in your data center, and then get to somewhere where it's really not governed at all out on their mobile devices. Now, this is happening for a reason. There's huge opportunities both for corporations and for staff in this. This is why the pool is there to make this happen. Obviously, as an employer, we get more productivity out of our workers. They can do their work when and where they want to, and as they travel around. But it's also very popular with the staff themselves, because they get increased flexibility in terms of being able to mix their personal activities and their work activities. So, given that this is the reality, that information is increasingly shifting the edge outside of that harbor that you've traditionally protected information in, you need to think about what are your plans for securing, protecting that corporate data on the edge, for regaining visibility and control of that information. And as I go around talking to IT directors and CIOs about this, sometimes people think they've got this covered or covered to an extent. They will say things like, well, look, we've got filers and we provide VPN access and policy which says that, our road warriors and our C-level executives and our home workers that work from home, they should remember now to copy stuff to a shared folder on our filers, and then it can all be protected again. But you know what? It doesn't really happen, not in the real world. People focus on doing their jobs. And all policy really achieves is protecting the IT department's backside. So let's a little bit more about the difference in the environment between the mission-critical world inside the data center and what happens when that mission-critical data increasingly living outside of the data center. So inside the data center, and in a past life, I was an IT director of a global investment bank, so I've certainly made these investments myself. We invested time, money, effort, people, and process to make sure that we can manage that environment and secure that environment. Outside the data center, the world is very different, though. Lots of different user roles. I've touched on a couple already. Road warriors. They're connected 1 minute on a train, the next minute on a plane these days. Your back office workers who work remotely. Increasingly, the C-level guy who just wants to get that one killer piece of information on an iPad to show to someone at lunch. You bet that these people are going to find a way to do that, whether you sanctioned it or not. We find all sorts of devices are being used by staff. You might have a BYOD, bring your own device policy, or you might not. It really matter. Staff are just going to go to PC World, buy the devices that they want to use. My mum can use public cloud services to share information between the data center where she works and devices that she owns. So we see massive growth in the deployment of data on these devices and huge potential for data leaks and loss. There's a sort of shadow IT world where there's no data governance that's grown up. I've heard this recently been talked about as BYOC, bringing cloud, using publicly available cloud services for people to just put their own kind of IT service. And that's great in one sense, perhaps for the users, but you know what? It's no longer rocket science. So they're going to do it just because they want to and because they want their jobs done. But IT is still accountable. We need that visibility, that control of information. We have a responsibility to protect it and need to be able to inspect what's in there and deal with issues when they arise. So Code42, in partnership with LETN, we're a company which is leading the market in solving this set of problems. We focus on nothing else. We're doing this for over 7 years and supplying solutions to 30,000 of the world's largest corporations and those corporations as well in solving this problem. We also, by the way, provide a service for end users and consumers, which I'll speak more about later. So let me explain to you a little bit about how about solving these problems, then I'll get on to what some of our products are. Here you see on the screen a representation of, for example, workstations, a lot of devices, whether they're Windows or Mac or Linux or whatever. Perhaps there are some Android tablets, some iOS devices like iPhones and iPads as well. And today, all the information that's being shared on those mobile devices that are outside of the network is effectively unprotected, and IT has got no visibility or control of the information that's there. So where we start is with endpoint data protection. Code42 protects every file, back it up transparently and visibly. I'll give you a little bit more information on that later. Every change on every device. And as part of that process, we provide IT with a central repository that represents all that information on those endpoint devices. So we do this in a way which brings that information into your corporate security domain. So just focusing on the top of the slide here, where the word security is, we don't just mean how that the files are encrypted or we use SSL to protect it in transit. Of course, we do all of those things, but it's much more than that. What we do is we integrate this information and our services with your corporate security domain. That means if files are encrypted, they're encrypted with your private keys. That no matter where they're stored, where they're backed up to, that if you were to be subpoenaed, for example, the US government has the Patriot Act, which enables them to get access to this information. Anything that is accessed by someone like that or rogue behavior, if it's encrypted, it's encrypted with your keys. They're only going to get access to rubbish. That's a world away from what happens with some of these public file sharing services, where the information is perhaps encrypted with the cloud services keys, not with your keys. Also, as part of your security domain, we integrate with your directories, with your LDAP, with your Active Directory. That's really important because that speaks to governance of identity. Who has access to what information, and your ability to change that. Staff come and staff go. We have processes and lever processes that revolve around the directory infrastructure that we've invested as part of the data governance processes within our data center. We enable you to extend that out to the information that is not currently visible to you on those endpoint devices, that isn't being copied to your filers. And further than that, we integrate with your single sign-on and so forth. So we think it's important to back up that information, every file, every change, every device that users have. We can do this for unlimited numbers of amount of data in terabytes. And by doing this, we actually bring a couple of sets of benefits to two groups of people. First of all, focus on the users on the right there, the information workers, where to increase their productivity, because this is not just about backing up that information, it's about recovering the information, and they have to do so in a way which is self-service. Self-service means that instead of one of your staff having to send a ticket to the IT department, and the department then going and recovering all stuff that was backed up yesterday, then identifying which stuff belongs to that user, then going and finding the file that the guy was after. He had to go and do his PowerPoint presentation to his customer, and he lost the file, or he damaged the file, or he couldn't get back to where he was. By the time IT have responded to that and wasted their time on the process, you know, the moment has passed, the productivity has been lost. The guy's probably gone and recreated the information and got on with his day, got on with his meeting or his spreadsheet or whatever it was he was doing. Well, we believe that these services should be self-service, whether self-service for the end user to restore themselves or for IT to restore it remotely for them without anyone having to get up off their seats and do that. Self-service also extend to mobile access and to synchronizing information between those personal devices and work devices, but doing so in a way with all of this, which is created as part of your corporate security domain in the discussed earlier. And a bit further than that as well, we also have tools that run on the same platform, enable us to let you share and collaborate between users, both on between users which are all corporation, but increasingly, of course, we'll need to collaborate with people who are outside of their own organization. So that's what endpoint data protection enables in terms of productivity for end users. It's about self-service recovery, mobility, synchronizing data between devices, and being able to share and collaborate. At the time, think how this impacts IT. When I was running IT in global banks, we were frequently asked to somehow go and look at and inspect information that had been used by certain groups of users on certain transactions. And most investigations didn't come to much. That process is called e-discovery. Sometimes there was important information to be gleaned. We also were able to protect the corporation by defending ourselves in court, sometimes by having that evidence. And of course, we also needed to implement a hold. Sometimes when we're being investigated, compliance people would ask us to undertake. We didn't delete information that might relate to something that may later be investigated. Now, in the old days, that was easy. I'd go look in the filers, and in filers, I would find that information. I could discover who'd been doing what, and I could implement legal holds information. Well, that's really hard to do when all that information isn't in the data center, when lots of that information that people are working on, whether they're doing it legitimately or whether there's rogue activity going on, is probably not being copied into your primary data center or your filer. So your IT department, that visibility and control, central repository that represents all information that is devices, so that now your existing e-discovering legal hold processes can extend to information that is on the edge of your network on those workstations and devices. Now, about disaster recovery, I'd be very surprised if you haven't implemented disaster recovery for your primary data centers. Well, what about devices that are on the edge of your network? I was speaking to a customer a couple of weeks ago, and they had a flood, believe it or not, on the 5th floor of their building. How does that happen? Well, that happens when a pipe bursts on the 6th floor of the same building. And those guys, you know, they were doing all their work on their workstations. They're actually editing videos, corporate videos for companies like us and others. The finished product, for sure, goes in their data center. And that's where it gets broadcasted, and it's protected there. But the work in progress, the raw, the sound that they're mixing in there, the little spreadsheet where the guy keeps a track of his hours and the work he's doing for which client, that's their workstations. And when the workstations were suddenly lost due to that flood on the 5th floor of that building, all of the flow stopped. All the cash flow stops. Well, what happens if they're protected with Code42, as this customer was, is their customers, their users, can just self-service, click down, they get some free hardware out of the storeroom, go to the local Apple store in this case, and get something quickly as well. And in a self-service way, just like if you lost your iPad and you used iCloud to get the information back, very soon got that information back in a matter of hours, and they're up and running. And so the CEO of that company said to me, I thought it was quite interesting, he said, you know, thank goodness we had disaster recovery, not only for our data center, but all the workstations, because that's where the work happens. The clue is obviously in the name. In fact, we find increasingly that having this central repository of endpoint data not only helps solve problems like e-discovery, leakholds, and disaster recovery, but think of device migration. I was with a customer in London just last week, a large global corporation with 2,000 people in the UK. The IT there told me that 25% of those workstations are migrated every year. That's just through natural wastage. They have a policy of keeping workstations and laptops for a maximum of 4 years. Half of that population's on Windows and about half of that population's on Mac. Well, what's happening is they have to find time for the user to bring their laptop into IT. The IT guys then have a pile of laptops on their desk, and they do that thankless task of copying information from the old machine to the new machine. The same for operating system upgrades and so forth. Well, once you've protected your information, once you've done that endpoint detection with Code42, that also becomes a self-service activity. You just give someone that device, and you can do it for them, or they can do it themselves, and all the information is downloaded back there. So I'm giving the idea here that by bringing that information from the edge into your corporate security domain, we massively enhance user productivity and mobility at the same time as storing visibility and control for your end users. So quickly, to give you a little heads up on some of the products, we'd obviously really like you to consider a meeting and a demonstration with us so we can show you properly. Our platform is called Code42. That's the platform all of our products rest, and it can be deployed in the cloud, and it can be deployed in various ways, which I'll go into in a moment. But the products that on top of that are called CrashPlan and SharePlan. CrashPlan is about backing up everyone, everywhere, all the time, and SharePlan is the extension which enables you to deal with the file sync and share and collaboration requirements of your workforce. Very briefly on CrashPlan, it deploys on the laptops silently, running in the background, being no additional workload on the machine that the users would perceive. It provides continuous protection of that end user data, and it allows us to keep a track of every file, every change to every file, and even the deleted stuff. And that's very important when it comes to e-discovery and legal hold, for example. It's also important when users realize that they've screwed up and they want to get back to how things were before. At the same time, CrashPlan also enables the same users to access that same data wherever they want, wherever they are, on a mobile device, on another PC, via the web or via cloud. So a single administrator is able to easily support thousands of users using this infrastructure for our own public service, which I'll tell you a bit more about at the end. We do this for many millions of users, and we make that same platform available to our corporate customers, some of them you can see on the left there. And the beauty of that is that one person can administer all of this backup and restore activity and all the data inspection and control activity centrally from one place. And this enables us to minimise the risk by ensuring you can meet your data governance and security requirements, even for information that's on the edge. CrashPlan takes things a step further. It's secure enterprise file sync and share. This facilitates real-time access and sharing of information in project groups. We use it internally ourselves. It's fantastic. It's essentially a form of shared folder that extends out to the mobile world and out to users outside of your organisation. Increasingly, people need to collaborate in business with people who are employees as well as people who are working in external consultancies and so forth. And team collaboration inside and outside of your organisation. Now, we're not alone in that, but what's here is that we do all of this as part of your corporate security domain. So we bring this back into your control. CrashPlan have a number of deployment options: public cloud, managed private cloud. I'll talk a bit about how that integrates with LETN as well. An image there you can see of that centralized console that lets you manage, dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of users from place. A few mobile devices there on the right. We've got all the apps in the app stores that enable your staff to access that content that we're backing and sharing through their Android, iOS, Linux, and other devices. The right cloud solution needs to not meet your security requirements. You have deployment options that meet needs. The way that we deploy is managed private cloud, and we're very focused on doing that with partners such as LETN. So that could be in data center, but as we move things to cloud services, infrastructure as a service hosted by LETN, for example, that service can be deployed as part of that infrastructure as a service stack at LETN. And also our software as a service, a public cloud solution, or even hybrid. Sometimes we find people need a mixture of the both, depending on their needs. All of that is available through LETN's IT as a service marketplace as well. It's very important, if we're looking after your information, that we protect that and we support you 24/7. We have extremely high customer satisfaction rates. As I mentioned, we're doing this for 30,000 corporations around the world and millions upon millions of end users. We have global in-house support. We don't outsource this to faceless people in far-off lands. Here in the UK as well as in the US and Australia, our data centers are all over the world. We provide professional services, again, through our partners at LETN, because what we're doing is not just providing you a cloud service and software as a service. We're doing with something which integrates with your corporate security domain. That means integrating with your existing infrastructure, and that's important that we provide the ability for you to do that. So here's Bragwell. We see customers of all sorts in all industries using this. Procter & Gamble, Salesforce.com, people like Accenture and Adobe, universities, small businesses. You can see all sorts of logos on the slide there. And here in the UK, BBC, News International, College, I could go on. So I hope you found this interesting this morning. I tried to give you some insight into how Code42, working with LETN, protect information, back it up, enable self-service restore, but more than that. All that is part of your corporate security domain, and even shrink wrap down that cloud service to be your infrastructure as a service at LETN. And while doing so, enable mobile workforce activity, but we also restore that visibility and control of all that information back to your back to your department. Software as a service, so it's priced so that you don't have to pay for all of the hardware on our cloud services. For example, you pay an annual subscription. Like it, you turn it off. That's why we have such a high retention and customer satisfaction rate, because that keeps service software as a service vendors such as us honest. We have to keep providing you with the best service that there is, and this business model is proving very low cost for customers as well as more flexible for you as well. So we'll show you a bit more about this. We offer you a chance to get a free CrashPlan family account as part of our non-corporate, our public service. And we'll give you this free account if you book a demo meeting with Code42. Enable us to show you firsthand how we can protect your business information, enable mobile workforce productivity, but without putting your organisation at risk. We're a free 12-month family subscription with unlimited cloud backup. Again, unlimited. We don't care how many terabytes you back up. You can do that for up to 10 devices, anyone in your family. They also get mobile data access. I use this for my daughters and their boyfriends at university, and my wife, and for my mum. All you got to do is book a demo meeting with Code42 to qualify. Contact your reps at LETN for more about that. So thank you very much for your time and attention this morning. I'd like to hand back now to Steve Denby at LETN to wrap up. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks so much for talking this morning. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. I hope you found it useful. We have recorded this webinar, and we'll be making it available on demand via our website, which is www.letn.co.uk. Please do get in touch with us if you'd like to take Andy up on his offer of a meeting and a demo of the Code42 product services, and don't forget that we will provide with a free family account for 12 months of the system, so that you can get some personal experience on how this technology can back up your endpoint data. Okay, if you'd like to contact us after watching this, then the best number to reach us on is 01189 07 0070. Thanks again for attending. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.